Every word you read, every message you send, every book ever written, it all traces back to just 22 symbols. No, this isn't just some ancient writing. This was a flat out revolution. And it wasn't started by stuffy scholars or powerful kings, but by busy merchants who just needed a faster way to get their work done. In solving that one simple problem, they accidentally changed the world forever. For thousands of years, writing was a secret power held by a tiny few. It was complex, difficult, and designed to keep people out. But one civilization, driven by the practical needs of business, perfected a system so simple and so brilliant that it broke the monopoly and handed the written word to everyone. So how did a 22-letter system, born on the shores of the Middle East, become the ancestor of the very letters you're reading right now? Let's get into it. But first, we need to understand what came before. Because before this revolution, the world was drowning in symbols. Complex, rigid, and impossible for most people to use. Writing was a code, and only the elite held the key. To really get why this was such a game changer, we need to travel back to a time before alphabets. Picture yourself as a scribe in ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia around 3,500 years ago. Writing isn't something you learn on the side, it's your entire life's work. Over in Mesopotamia, you'd have to master cuneiform, a system of wedge-shaped marks pressed into wet clay. But these weren't letters. A single symbol could be a whole word, a syllable, or an abstract idea. You'd have to memorize hundreds and hundreds of them. Mastering it was a full-time job with years of brutal training. Scribes were their own special class, a tiny fraction of the population, who held the keys to law, religion, and history. They were the gatekeepers of all information. Then hop over to Egypt, and you'd find the beautiful but just as complicated hieroglyphs. These were intricate little pictures, each one a miniature work of art, and just like cuneiform, a symbol could be a sound, an object, or a big idea. Reading a temple wall wasn't just reading a text, it was cracking a dense, secret code. It was an incredible tool for priests and pharaohs, but totally useless for a regular person. For centuries, that's just how things were. Writing was power, and that power was kept in the hands of a few. It was the language of the state and the temple, meant for grand declarations and palace inventories, not for everyday chatter. If you were a farmer, a craftsman, or even a merchant, the written word was a world away. This wasn't an accident. It was a feature. It kept knowledge locked up and preserved the rigid social pyramid of the Bronze Age. But that age was about to come to a very messy end, and from its ashes, a new world was waiting to be born. Enter the Phoenicians. Popping up around 1200 BCE in what's now modern-day Lebanon, the Phoenicians weren't your typical empire builders. They didn't conquer vast lands. Instead, they built an empire of the sea. They were the ultimate middlemen, the master sailors of the ancient world. Their ships sailed the Mediterranean loaded with cedar, metals, glass, and their legendary purple dye. But these traders faced a surprisingly modern problem: paperwork. They were dealing with dozens of cultures, countless languages, and a dizzying number of deals. They needed to track cargo, write contracts, and send messages to partners in faraway ports. The old writing systems were just too slow and clunky. A merchant haggling in a crowded port didn't have a week to sit around carving a clay tablet. They needed something fast, efficient, and easy to learn. So they perfected one. Building on some earlier, more primitive scripts from the region, the Phoenicians developed something truly revolutionary: an alphabet with just 22 symbols. This was the stroke of genius. Instead of a symbol for a whole word like boat or a syllable like ba, they had one syllable for one basic sound, specifically one consonant sound. It was an abjad, a writing system that mostly ignored vowels, but even so, its simplicity was stunning. Anyone could learn it. Not just elite scribes, but sailors, potters, and merchants. For the first time in history, writing was democratized. Literacy was suddenly within reach for ordinary people. Take the letter you know as A. Its story starts with the first letter of the Phoenician alphabet, Aleph. Aleph was the Phoenician word for ox, a super important animal and a symbol of strength. The original symbol was literally a little drawing of an ox's head with two horns. Over time, to write it faster, scribes simplified it and turned it on its side. Over centuries, it evolved into a mark so abstract you'd never guess it once had horns. One symbol, one sound. That was the magic principle. Bet, meaning house, became the B sound. Gimel, meaning camel, became the G sound. A whole universe of spoken language could now be captured with just 22 simple characters. This wasn't an academic project, it was a business tool. The ultimate app for a globalized economy, letting traders from different backgrounds communicate with a shared, simple system. The Phoenicians didn't just carry cargo across the sea, they carried an idea, and that idea would go on to reshape the world. An idea this good was never going to stay home. As Phoenician ships set up colonies and trading posts from Cyprus all the way to Spain, they brought their revolutionary script with them. It was practical, it was adaptable, and it was the perfect tool for talking to strangers, and pretty soon other cultures started taking notice. Now that the Phoenicians had cracked the code, what happened next would take their idea to a whole new level, literally shape the foundations of Western civilization. The next great chapter in this story belongs to the Greeks. Around the 8th century BCE, the Greeks got to know the Phoenician traders and saw the power of their writing system. So they borrowed it. But they hit a snag. Phoenician is a Semitic language built around consonant roots where vowels are often implied. Greek, an Indo-European language, doesn't work that way. Vowels are absolutely critical. So the Greeks did something incredibly clever. The Phoenician alphabet had a few letters for consonant sounds that just don't exist in Greek. Instead of tossing those useless symbols out, they gave them a new job. That Phoenician letter Aleph represented a sound that the Greeks didn't need. So they decided to use it for the vowel sound ah. They even gave it a Greek-sounding name, Alpha. They did the same thing with other leftover letters. The Phoenician he became the Greek epsilon, our e, and ayin became omicron, our short o. With that one brilliant hack, the Greeks created the world's first true alphabet, a system with separate characters for both consonants and vowels. This made writing even clearer and easier to learn, and it unlocked a whole new level of expression. The epic poems of Homer, the philosophy of Plato and Aristotle, the histories of Herodotus, all of it was written down and passed on thanks to this adapted script. But the journey wasn't over. From Greece, the alphabet traveled to Italy with Greek colonists. There it was picked up by the Etruscans, who tweaked it to fit their own unique language. And who lived right next door to the Etruscans? A small but ambitious city on the Tiber River, Rome. The early Romans were heavily influenced by the Etruscans, and they adopted their version of the alphabet to write their own language, Latin. The Romans made their own tweaks, of course. They perfected the letter shapes into the classic capitals we still carve into monuments today, and they tinkered with the sounds. For instance, the Etruscans didn't bother distinguishing between the K and G sounds, so they just used the C for both. The Romans did the same at first, but eventually added a little bar to the C to create the letter G, restoring a distinction the Phoenicians nailed centuries earlier. Full circle. Through conquest, trade, and sheer administrative might, the Roman Empire spread the Latin script across the known world from Britain to North Africa. What started as 22 marks for merchants had become the official script of an empire, evolving with every culture it met. Before we get to how this all wraps up, if you're geeking out on this story as much as we are, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We unpack hidden histories like this every week. And drop a comment below. Which letter's backstory surprised you the most? And now, let's zoom out and see just how massive the ripple effects of this ancient script really were. So what's the real legacy of this 3,000-year journey? It's pretty much the entire modern world. The revolution started by those 22 Phoenician symbols was really a revolution in information itself. By making writing something anyone could learn, the alphabet shattered the power of the old scribe class. Literacy was no longer a secret handshake for priests and kings. A merchant could keep their own accounts. A citizen could read the laws for themselves. A philosopher could share their ideas far and wide. This spread of literacy fueled the explosion of knowledge, trade, and culture that defined the classical world and everything that came after. The alphabet literally became the foundational software for Western civilization. The Roman alphabet, the direct descendant of that Phoenician script, passed down through Greek and Etruscan hands, is now used to write thousands of languages, including the English you're reading right now. Its sibling scripts, born from the same family tree, gave us the Hebrew and Arabic alphabets, shaping culture and faith for billions more. Every time you type an email, read a book, or even glance at a sign, you're using a piece of technology refined over millennia, but born from a simple, practical need. Those letters on your screen, A, B, C, aren't just shapes. They're artifacts. They're the ghosts of ancient pictures of an ox's head, a house, and a camel, passed down and polished through a chain of empires. From the busy ports of ancient Phoenicia, through the forums of Greece, and the monuments of Rome. These symbols have been on an unbelievable journey. They're proof that a simple idea can cross any border, outlast any empire, and connect all of us across thousands of years. These 22 symbols didn't just change the world, they built it.